Vacations will never be the same. Welcome to the theme parks of Universal Orlando Resort. With spectacular hotels and more, Universal Orlando offers an entire week of vacation awesome. Visit universalorlando.com.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Key figures from the Trump administration and the Iranian regime held talks recently as President Trump has said that the U.S. and Israel will do all they can to ensure Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. So where is all of this headed, and will the U.S. and Israel ultimately take military action against the nuclear development infrastructure there in Iran? And how pivotal is this moment for the Mideast and really for the world? Well, for more on this, we are joined by the best Iranian expert out there. Alireza Jafarzadeh is known for revealing the major nuclear sites in Iran years ago. I remember doing that with him and reporting on it, and boy, oh boy, he really has amazing insight. He is also the Deputy Director of the U.S. Representative Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. And Alireza, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Rita. It's always a great pleasure to be on your show, and you've done a great work informing the American public and making the most sophisticated things into a very simple way for everyone to understand.
Well, thank you. You too, because it is so important, and you understand this issue, I think, really better than anybody. How critical are these talks, first of all, and the efforts by the Trump administration right now to really put pressure on Iran?
Well, when you talk about the, nuclear talks, people, should remember that this is not the first time that the Iran regime has come to the nuclear negotiating table. Actually, you just mentioned the 2002 revelation of the major nuclear sites in Iran by us that triggered the inspections of Iranian nuclear sites by the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, for the first time, and triggered the whole attention of the world. Interestingly, just months after that, the EU3, Britain, Germany, and France got involved in negotiating with the Iranian regime. Unfortunately, at the time, instead of moving in the direction of shutting down the nuclear sites of Iran, they basically gave concessions to the Iranian regime, allowed the program to go forward. And then again, the nuclear talks started a decade later that led to the nuclear agreement known as the JCPOA in 2015, which honestly was really legitimizing the existence of the nuclear program, allowing the regime to go forward. Now, 10 years later, in 2025, again, we're talking about the nuclear talks. This time, it's the United States and the Iranian regime. But the most important element is that the whole circumstances have significantly changed. This regime has never been so weak. They have lost much of the clout in the region. Their biggest ally, Assad in Syria, is gone. Their biggest proxies in Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then the Houthis in Yemen, and the Hashd al-Shaabi, the Shia militias in Iraq, have been either shattered or significantly weakened. Inside the country, the public has turned against the regime. There have been 9 rounds of major uprisings in Iran since 2018, calling for change. So this is a weak regime, a vulnerable regime, a desperate regime coming to the table, and we need to understand that this is the time and the opportunity to hold the regime accountable, make them make the concession, which I think there is no other concession other than just shutting down all of their nuclear weapons program. Remember, the Iran regime doesn't have, what they call the peaceful nuclear energy program. No, since day one, it's always been about building the bomb. Now is the time to stop it.
How also important is it that now President Trump's in the White House? I mean, this is the guy who took out Soleimani. He's not sending in pallets of cash in the middle of the night. It's a different U.S. leadership, too.
Well, that's an important point you raised, Rita, because people remember that during the 2015 nuclear talks, there were pallets of cash in addition to, tens of billions of dollars of assets and, unfreezing the assets to the Iran regime, providing opportunity for them, basically opening doors to them. At the end of the day, all of that money ended up in the pockets of the Revolutionary Guards and the clerics, who in turn funded their proxies in the region, further empowered those proxies at the time. It was a disaster approach at the time, and I'm very glad that, we're talking about an entirely different approach here by President Trump. He has made it, officially, publicly announced that the Iran regime must dismantle its nuclear weapons program. He has declared the maximum pressure policy, and I'm sure there are all kinds of forces involved trying to tone down that approach, trying to drag the issue, including the regime itself and their allies, and try to see how in the world they can actually keep the program alive. And that's why it's so important to focus on the stated policy of President Trump and the United States government, that is, the Iran regime cannot have a nuclear weapons program, period.
The other issue, too, is obviously President Trump has also sent, the fleet of B-2 bombers in the region. He's also put ships in theater. So he's also backing up actions with some of these words, too. How important is that Iran sees some military might?
Well, it's very important for the regime to understand that the circumstances have changed, that they cannot play the games that they were playing for over 2 decades. And also whatever they were doing, which turned out to be actually profitable for the regime, it's now going to backfire on them. It's going to be a huge liability for them. Unfortunately, the Iran regime, which for a good reason has been classified as the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism for over 3 decades, use that terrorism as leverage to get concessions on the nuclear issue, on so many other areas, basically using that to stay in power. The same thing they did with the nuclear weapons program, which is, a tool for their survival. Terrorism turned out to be a very profitable business for them because they were taking hostages. They would get money for it and then to take more. And that cycle of just basically hostage diplomacy that the regime used was very profitable. That has to end, and that's why it's so important for the regime to understand whatever actions they take, if they don't move toward the direction of dismantling their nuclear weapons program and ending their terrorism, there are going to be consequences. But let me tell you something about in terms of consequences. What the regime is really worried about, is concerned about, is their own survival. They would do anything to stay in power. The biggest problem they're facing right now is the internal situation. The economy is in shambles. In fact, the foundation for those uprisings that started in 2018 was the economy. And that has gotten even worse. The value of the Iranian currency has lost, half of its value just since past August, when the new president, Pezeshkian, took office. And whatever they're doing is not working. The regime has resorted to more executions and more killings, trying to frighten the population to prevent another uprising. Just in 2024, the regime executed over 1,000 prisoners, including political prisoners and women. Since Pezeshkian took office in August, already over 1,000 have been executed. What does it tell you? It tells you this regime is weak, is vulnerable, and what the real solution, the ultimate solution to ending the nuclear threat as well as its terror threat, is ending the rule of the clerics. And of course, that's the responsibility of the people of Iran and the organized resistance. There's no need for boots on the ground or appropriating money or anything like that. If the policy is corrected, is the shift if there is a shift away from giving concessions to the regime, but towards recognizing the right of the people of Iran to overthrow this regime, the right of those what they call resistance units inside Iran, the young people who are confronting the Revolutionary Guards to, if that right is recognized, there's going to be a huge difference.
Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Wow. How many people do you think, or what percentage do you think of the population is ready to sort of join an uprising? How many do you think would actually do it? And how worried are they that they too could face some serious consequences by this regime?
Well, for a major change or a revolution to take place, first of all, you need to have the population on your side away from the regime, which already is there. The example was how the people are boycotting the elections that they've had in the past few years. Every time the voter turnout is lower than the previous time, meaning the people have entirely lost faith in the ballot box. Second, you need to have an organized force to turn that discontent, the anger of the population into change. And that's where the role of the organized opposition comes, those resistance units I mentioned inside the country. The fact that during the uprisings in the past few years in all 31 provinces of Iran, it wasn't limited to like intellectuals in the capital or a certain area of the country that is underdeveloped and then people would be opposed to it. No, it's all 31 provinces, one way or the other, they were involved in those protests. What was very important about these recent protests in the past few years is that it was basically the poor, the deprived, the smaller towns and cities who used to be the bedrock of support for the Iran regime are the ones who are revolting against the regime. So the regime is really running out of steam. The resistance is gaining momentum. And that's why it's so important to understand this whole new situation. This is not 2015. This is not, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. The potential for change is real. It's on the ground. The organized opposition has a very clear platform. Our movement is led by a woman, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi.
Yep.
She offered a 10-point platform for the future of Iran that says that, the only criteria for legitimacy is actually the ballot box. Not the dictatorship of the Shah that, said, he has a better gene, he or his son has to rule, or the theocracy of the mullahs who say they get the legitimacy from God. No, it's the ballot box. You have to have the separation of religion and state. You have to believe in a free market economy, supporting peace in the Middle East and a non-nuclear republic form of a government. and gender equality, women that are badly suppressed under the misogynist regime of the Ayatollahs. If you're a woman, you cannot be a judge. Can you imagine in a country of close to 90 million population, not a single female judge exists in the country? What does it tell you about the nature of the regime? And that's why the potential for change is out there. That platform that I mentioned, the 10-point platform for the future of Iran, that Mrs. Rajavi introduced, has gained tremendous support in a bipartisan way in the U.S. and cross-party in Europe. 4,000 sitting parliamentarians in various countries in Europe, including the U.S. Congress here, have supported this, saying, okay, this is, and imagine, Rita, if Iran turns away from what it is now and becomes a non-nuclear, non-belligerent, free, democratic republic form of a government, what an impact it would have in the whole region. The epicenter of terror lies in Tehran. That would be eliminated. Instead, Iran would become the center of encouragement for peace and tranquility. Whatever you want to do regarding accomplishing peace in the region, none of that at the end of the day are going to succeed. Why? Because the mullahs are there. They're the head of the snake of war and terror. They sabotage everything. And that's why, a free, democratic, non-nuclear republic, Iran, is not only good for the people of Iran, it's an essential change that would affect the whole situation in the region, if not the globe.
Yeah, I mean, that would be absolutely extraordinary. As you so eloquently describe, Alireza, because of all the tentacles of the snake, how much of a lost opportunity was that when there wasn't support at that moment for the uprising from the United States? It was then President Obama.
Yes, that was 2009. And, the whole focus at that time that, President Obama had just taken office. And the only thing that was on people's mind in the White House was how to, start a negotiation with the Iran regime. What does it take? What do we give the Ayatollahs? And right in the beginning, these big uprisings started, big demonstrations in the country. Instead of siding with the people of Iran, they were just basically dragging their feet, waiting for these protests to be crushed so that they can go back and negotiate with the Iranian regime. That kind of a thinking is not just detrimental to the lives of people, those who lost their lives in Iran, but think about the tremendous negative strategic impact it has had in the whole region. Instead of trying to die down the root of terrorism, you just allow it to continue. And then after years, the regime has built this impression in the minds of people that, these mullahs have been there for, 30-some years. They're going to be there maybe for another 30, 40 years. So you better find a way of living with the mullahs. No, that has to change. That mentality, that approach that was dictated by the Iran regime, and many people in Washington and other capitals accepted that has to change. And that's why it's so important for the new administration here to emphasize on the most important element as far as the international community is concerned is actually the nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime, to emphasize that this program cannot continue. It has to be dismantled. And this is so crucial for the regime because, the cost that the regime's paid for the nuclear weapons program has been enormous. At least $2 trillion has been spent on the nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime. This is a huge amount of money for a country like Iran. Just to give you an example, the 8 years of the destructive Iran-Iraq war that basically destroyed the whole country cost about $1 trillion. The nuclear weapons program is twice as much as the Iran-Iraq war. Why would the regime spend the money there? Because, it's essential, it's very crucial for their survival, but also the rest of the world allowed them to do it. So they felt, well, they have room to maneuver. They can move forward. Why not? That has to change. And I hope the new circumstances, plus, as you mentioned, President Trump is in office. The whole situation in the region has changed. The whole world has realized the threat. But also, I hope they see the solution, that the the ultimate solution is really recognizing the right of the people of Iran to overthrow the regime. And that's where the focus should be. And I think the Congress is on the right side. And I hope the administration is following up with that. And, I know this is early stages of the nuclear talk, but I just heard today that the president said that, he's very impatient. Why they're dragging you so long? It's very simple. They need to end their nuclear weapons program, period. The attitude you need, that's what anybody who gets involved in this should follow up.
And how far do you think they are along with their nuclear development? I mean, the world seems to think, at least world leadership certainly seems to think, that they're very close to a nuclear weapon. How close do you believe they are?
Well, first of all, we don't know everything, even though we played a huge role in exposing the nuclear side. We have, a lot of information about them. But remember, there are still a lot of unknowns about their nuclear weapons program that the regime has kept in secret. Most of the sites that the IAEA is now inspecting, none of them were exposed by the regime or anything like that. We exposed them. But having said that, whatever we already know is scary enough. The regime, in order to build a bomb, you need to have three components. You need to have the fissile material, which is either enriched uranium or plutonium, and you need to enrich it beyond, what they call the weapons grade, over 90%. They have enough fissile material that, is just one screwdriver turned away from getting it to, weapons grade level. Then you need to turn that into a weapon, what they call weaponizing that fissile material, where there is very little information about it. But what we know already, they're very advanced about that. The regime has not allowed the IAEA to follow up on those issues or inspect the places or talk to the experts that we exposed before. And then there is the delivery system, the missiles. We just had a press conference in January of this year showing that the two sites that were known until then, that they were basically missile sites, or what the regime said, they have a peaceful, a space program that they're putting satellites into orbit. This whole thing is a facade. They actually are working on building nuclear warheads on mid-range missiles over 3,000 kilometers. So they are very advanced, and you don't want to wait until it's too late. And that's why it's so important to act now. There is also another, time that you have to keep in mind. Come this October 2025, a lot of the other restrictions that the United Nations Security Council are going to expire. A lot of the limitations of the regime on their nuclear program based on, the sunset clauses in the JCPOA are going to expire. But most importantly, the ability to snap back the sanctions on the regime, which is a mechanism within the JCPOA, that is going to expire in October. And in order to activate that mechanism, you need at least 2-3 months ahead. So we're talking about between now and sometime in June to act. And otherwise, it's going to be too late, and the regime is going to be off the hook. And that's why there is urgency, and there is focus, and there is a timeline. And that's where I hope everybody will be focused on that one, making all of the developments happening between now and June.
This episode is brought to you by Hulu, presenting Paradise. Paradise is Hulu's critically acclaimed addictive drama series, starring Sterling K. Brown, Julianne Nicholson, and James Marsden. The Daily Beast calls Paradise your next TV obsession, and the New York Times says it's exhilarating in all the right ways. Paradise is for your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Drama Series. For more information, visit fyc.hulu.com.
Yeah, very important. And that isn't that far away. Boy, oh boy. Well, everybody be sure to subscribe and share to this really powerful podcast. Alireza Jafarzadeh, you are terrific, and bravo to all the great work that you and everybody there at the National Council of Resistance of Iran are doing to fight for freedom within Iran. And you brought up so powerfully how important it is with all the tentacles that they have around the world, what a difference it would make. And let's pray for peace within Iran, and also pray that the resistance can take hold there at this moment, given this is a very pivotal moment there in history. Alireza, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rita. I mean, that's a very important prayer. You know, every morning I wake up, I'm just having this image and this picture of a free Iran, a democratic Iran, where the vote of the people would count. Women would play their own role, especially in the leadership, and Iran would play its positive role in the region. That's a very, very inspiring, image that, every day just is like a driving force for me. And I think that this is very doable, very reachable, and I really appreciate what you're doing in informing the public, putting out all of this information, and hopefully, if we line up all of our vectors, and it's not a partisan issue. This is about the future of millions, if not billions, of people around the world that we're focusing on. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, Rita.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.